So, guys, today's topic is bugging out when and where. So, uh, back to what I was saying. Leaving, guys, is again, it's something that you have to figure out for yourself. You can't have one person figure it out for you. You can't have a book tell you this. You can't have a YouTube channel tell you this. You have to figure out when is a good time to leave. Obviously, if you have something like, I don't know, a nuclear war, and it's almost an imminent nuclear war. If you live in a city like New York, yes, you're going to want to get out. You're going to leave ahead of time. Um, the problem with leaving ahead of time too is you could be stuck in a traffic jam, right? Everybody else is hearing this and hearing, oh, it might be a nuclear war. Now it's rush hour and you're leaving. Now you're stuck in this traffic. Now that's not to say that you can't get out of your car and walk, but now you're stuck in traffic. So cities like New York are damn near in every sense of the word a death trap because you can stay here, but then you have to deal with the after effects of staying here, which is rival gangs or rogue people running around, kicking doors in, looking for food and shelter. You're gonna have to deal with diseases if bodies start dying in the building you live in or near and around you. You're gonna start dealing with that. So there's a lot of things you're gonna start dealing with if you stay. But if you go and you have nowhere to go, you open yourself up to being attacked. So you have to figure out when is a good time for you to leave, when is a good time to stay, when that window is open, when that window is closed, right? So the open window is figuring out when a good time to leave. And now a lot of people will ask you during the day or at night. I would almost, if I'm going to leave, would leave at night. I would want to be uh, less detectable. I don't want eyes on me as little as possible. When you're in a city like New York, you almost have to assume there are eyes on you all over the place, right? Tall buildings everywhere, a million windows between you and, let's say, the George Washington Bridge. So you have to assume that there are eyes on you. So you have to move like you're being watched. And that's not to say that you run through the city like a maniac, dodging, someone who might shoot at you. You got to keep in mind that you could be being watched. Um, the city's a very complicated place to bug out from, and forget about bugging out too. Don't know why you would do it, but I know people like, well, I got family in such and such city. Good luck, right? Good luck trying to to fight your way in and then fight your way back out. Especially if you have a place like Detroit, where gangs will all but surely take over the streets in a matter of a week or two. You have to look at it. You have to look at it that way. You have to also account for the gangs and the bad element in that area, right? So if you have drug dealers on your corner, for example, you can all but guarantee they're going to take that block over. If you have gangs in your neighborhood, your area, you can all but guarantee they're going to take that block over. So you have to keep that in mind when you're looking to bug out. And this is the when part, where we're going to talk about in a little bit. But again, guys, because I have to reiterate for the camera recording, when you are bugging out, you have to write your situation down, right? So obviously, it's better to think off the top of your head. But if you have, let's say, an elderly person, a small kid, someone disabled, if someone's bedridden, you're most likely not leaving. So that's already you're already out of that. Um, if if you are sorry about that. If you have babies, if you have small kids, you don't want to carry a baby for 10, 15 miles at a clip, and you don't want to walk with small kids for 10, 15 miles at a clip. They're not going to walk 10 or 15 miles. They might walk 5 miles, and then that's it. And 5 miles, for example, where I live is George Washington Bridge. So that means you're going to camp out there for the night. So again, you have small kids, you might want to stay in place. If you have disabled kids, mentally ill, whatever it is, that's a bigger issue, especially if they make noise. You can't just you can't just walk through the city. You're going to be hurt. Again, especially if you have kids that are just noisemakers. So you have to consider that as well. Elderly people, they're not walking 5 miles. So you have to consider their ability. And here's the other thing, guys, for everyone, this is all of us. You have to know your ability when you're walking, when you're bugging out, when you're leaving. You know, for example, you have shit health, you can't walk, your knees hurt, your hips hurt, your lower back is killing you. you might not be able to walk 5 miles. You may only be able to walk 2 miles. And if all you can do is 2 miles, you better it's better for you to stay in your home, in your apartment, and hunker down than it is to try to walk 2 miles at a clip. It's not worth it. It's better to stay in place. The bigger part with leaving too, you have to have a place to go. You can't just walk out into America and wander around. Um, the movie I mentioned it early, The Road. I mentioned it this morning, rather. Sorry, The Road. In that movie, it looked like they were just wandering the countryside. Right? They left their home after what was it, 7, 8 years, and then they were just walking around with a shopping cart that made more noise than God knows what, right? In a world that's more quieter, where 90% of the population was dead or 95% of the population was dead, you can hear a shopping cart probably about a quarter mile or a mile away, right? And forget about being in an area like a block where you can actually hear it a little longer because the sound is bouncing off the buildings all the way. So shopping cart was a bad idea. That's one. You don't want to use anything that's going to rattle and make noise when you're bugging out, especially if you're bugging out at night and you're trying to use the cover of night as your way of getting out of there. So you have to keep that in mind. Where you're going to go, you have to have a point B, right, or C, but you can't just hit the road and you know have at it. It's not going to work out for you. Maybe if you're a single dude, if it's you and your wife, or you have older kids that can move with you and are armed, then maybe. But I would definitely not wander the road. I know gypsies have done it for centuries. If you have that mentality, you might be able to pull it off as well. But even gypsies still attach themselves to civilization moving around, right? So when they moved around, what was it, in Europe? They moved from civilization to civilization. They weren't just completely dependent on themselves. For periods of time, they were, but then when they got to the next town, city, or whatever it was, they attached themselves to there for a little while, and then they moved on, right? So even gypsies were, um, they needed somebody to help them out or pick up supplies or whatever it was. So the road, not the movie, but I'm talking about the actual road when they're bugging out, is super dangerous. It's super dangerous. It's super stressful. A lot of people, again, on YouTube, they make it like you got to leave, and when the shit hits the fan, you got to bug out. Okay, and then what? Now you're on the road. You're stressed out. You're losing your fucking hair because you're worried about everything. You're worried about if you're gonna make it to point A to B without fucking getting shot, beat up, your shit stolen, right? So you have a lot to worry about. Um, you gotta be super careful about bugging out, and you have to make the right decisions in bugging out. That's the other problem. A lot of people seem to think that I'm just gonna go on the road and wherever the wind takes me, I'm gonna go. Yeah, again, good luck with that shit. You know, good luck with that altogether. So also going back to injuries, knee problem, hip, ankle, lower back, and even shoulders if you have a backpack on. You have to address those ahead of time. Do not wait till the shit hits the fan and then you got to leave and now you're hobbling down the road with your backpack on and your bad knees and ankles. You need to address that ahead of time, right? If you live in a city, I would absolutely be addressing it right now. Whether you're going to do mobility work, which is more in-depth stretching and getting your body acclimated, or your joints, sorry, acclimated to carrying a pack, walking long distance, so be it. If you are going to bug out, you absolutely need to work out. You are not going to take your, uh, I guess, sedentary body for a large percentage of your life, throw a pack on, and start walking. This shit ain't gonna work out for you. You are, and especially if you're someone like me, which shame on me, you don't drink a lot of water, you are undoubtedly going to cramp up throughout that walk at some point. Maybe not the first day, but definitely the second day. So you have to figure all of these things out before you do it. If you have back problems and you can't walk with a backpack, think about a bug out bin. Right, a bug out bin is something on wheels. You put all your supplies in there. You are opening yourselves up to being a slow mover with that, but if it saves your back and your shoulders, that's something you might want to consider. Look into ultralight backpacking. You might want to look into that. That'll save your hips, your knees, and your back, and your ankles for that matter. looking to get in the right pair of shoes. The wrong pair of shoes, it's gonna fuck your feet the entire time you walk. You're gonna get blisters. If you're not a walker, if you're not a hiker, you're gonna get blisters, right? So the object of walking now, for example, you after this after the Zoom meeting, you go outside and go for a walk. 20 minutes. I would start at a 20 minutes minimum. If you have bad injuries, I wouldn't suggest walking at all. I would suggest addressing those injuries with your doctor or your therapist, your physical therapist, sorry, before you engage in any kind of exercise. I found out recently when I turned 40, and I'm 44, the older you get, you can't just jump into some shit and then think it's going to work out in your favor. Trying to jump back under, what was it, 315 pounds? Got it up, but I thought I was gonna fucking blow my chest out, right? So I've learned that I had to go back to the basics, start lifting again to get to where I needed to be. The same goes for walking, right? A lot of people are like, I used to backpack Europe 40 years ago. Well, guess what? You're 40 years older now. So now you have to address it differently, right? You can't just throw a backpack on and remember the days you used to do it when you were a kid. Matter of fact, in the group, earlier in the group, we had a lady who, she gained some weight over the years. She put this backpack on that she backpacked with in Europe when she was like 20 something years old. So this is like 40 something years, sorry, 20 something years later. So now she's in her like mid 40s. And we're hiking up a hill, and I thought she was going to die. She was in such bad shape that me and another guy had to take her back to her car. So we had to carry her pack for her and walk her back to her car because she thought, living in the past, that she could just put this pack on and do it. She wasn't able to do it. So that taught me a lesson. For people, they have to know where and you have to be realistic, right? You have to be realistic with yourself. I know, for example, and just as just an example, I can't jump under 450 pounds and squat anymore. My knees and my hips are fucking shot. So I'm not going to play myself and put myself in that danger, right? And make matters worse. The same goes for walking. Just because you did it when you were a kid doesn't mean you could do it now. You can get back to that point, but you have to train. So everybody needs to be careful when they're looking to bug out, walk, put a pack in their back. And to boot, when you put this pack in your back, guys, you have to walk with this pack. Now, I'm not saying take your bug out bag today, throw it in your back and walk. What I'm saying is go for a normal walk. Go for whatever kind of walking you're going to do. No weights, just your body. Then about a week or two in, you're going to take a backpack and you're going to put some weights in it. Well, I would say bottles of water. Now what's going to start happening is your core is going to want to start strengthening itself to deal with this weight. So you train with that for about a week or two. Then you add more water bottles or you add actual gear in it and you start putting weight on. And now your core is going to start strengthening itself. The basis of you walking and not suffering back pain and hip pain is strengthening your core. If you strengthen your core, you're going to have less of these issues down the line, right? And a lot of people fail to realize that. So core strengthening is going to work out better in your favor. And I read this in a hiker's magazine a few years back. A lot of them failed to realize over the years why they were getting all these pains. Well, they weren't doing core work, which is more like planking and things like that. And then they try to jump into hiking with a heavy pack as opposed to practicing. So everything is practice, guys. And while we are in this situation right now, where we still have light food, water, and Grubhub and all those other crazy shit, practice now. Practice now. And if something should happen, hell, it doesn't even have to be a shit to fan scenario or meteor. It could be something as simple as you have to leave your location because something bad happened. You can't take your car because there's a traffic jam, so you're going to have to move on foot, right? So there's always that. There's always those smaller situations that happen, right? Those people in Jersey that had that fire by the, what was it, the chlorine plant or whatever it was, right? Those people had to evacuate the area. And I'm pretty sure they were bussed out of there, but if the buses couldn't move, they would have had to walk. So something to consider. Now, there is a book. I'm going to pull it up. Wrong fucking link, shit. I'm going to pull it up for you, but there's a very good book if you're looking to move, or strategic. Sorry, it's called Strategic Relocation, right? It's written by Joel Sokson. Sorry, probably said it wrong. There's a fourth edition. I think that's the last edition that came out 2020, January 1st, 2020. So it's called Strategic Relocation North America Guide to Safe Places, whatever. And I'm going to put the link in the chat. And this book, everybody should definitely look at because it addresses all the places that you could possibly move to. It helps you pick the places you want to move to, right? So if you're looking for like good farmland, it's going to tell you this amount of this many states. You want to look at good gun rights, it's going to tell you this many states, right? It's going to tell you what's good, what good places have good soil, what good places don't, what places have ridiculous laws or real estate laws, and other states that don't. So it's a fairly good book. I dropped it in the chat for those of you looking to look at it. Very good book. I would absolutely look into it, especially if you're looking to relocate. Very good. So it's one of those things, guys, that the whole bugging out is, like I said, you have YouTubers that live in the country and like, you people that live in the city, you're gonna die and you should leave right now. I'm like, yeah, it's easy for you to say, you're fucking already there, you know. Those of us who were born and raised in the city, I mean, I can't wait to get the fuck out of here myself. You know, with Texas, we're looking to move to Texas, and with that, we're looking at a couple of areas around Austin, but not in Austin itself. And then hopefully I can get land out there or neighboring state, and then go from there. That's the ultimate goal. But you have to decide what's good for you. Is bugging out good for you, or is bugging in good for you? A lot of people are creatures of habit and comfort, and bugging out might not be the option for them, right? Some people will absolutely say, I don't know what's out there in the road and I'm scared. Bugging out is scary. It's not supposed to be easy. You're not supposed to be able to walk out there and people fucking, cheering you on as you're walking down the road. It isn't that. It's the real fucking world. And attacks, people setting up traps for you. You're walking down the road and someone's laying in the middle of the fucking road or on the side of the road. Could be a trap. Could be real. What do? Do you help or do you just walk by them? And if you don't want to, if you think it's a trap, walking by them is really not an option, right? So you have to go around. So what do, right? More people are inclined to help than not. But some cynical people will look at that and be like, fuck it. Could be a kid. Could be a kid on the road. Sitting there, I lost my mommy. Meanwhile, you go to help the kid and fucking dad comes up behind you, right? So if you're going to help, I mean, in that case, if you're going to help, make sure you leave one person behind. Don't everybody run in and help this kid or this lady or this guy out. Set one or two people behind and let one person go in and help, if you guys are going to do that. Again, it's one of those things where you have to decide on your own. If you're bugging out in the city, and that was the other thing at the point I missed from earlier. If you're bugging out in the city and you are waiting to leave, you could complicate matters or be putting yourself in a complicated matter by waiting too long, where gangs or most likely gangs and rogue people that band together block streets, block blocks off. So you're walking down the street and they got shit blocked off and they're standing there like a guard. They have the George Washington, they could have the George Washington Bridge blocked off. You could be driving your car because there might be no traffic or less traffic, or you're maneuvering around all these cars, and then they got the street blocked off, wanting you to give them some shit to get by. Now, me personally, the only way to deal with that, if they're demanding you to take some shit, there's only one way to deal with it. Mike, go ahead.
So that's something that I think we saw last summer with the riots, is that when the police get pushed back or they are no longer doing their jobs, that power vacuum gets filled immediately by whoever's in the area with, I would say, the biggest presence or the biggest, threat. That the power vacuum fills incredibly fast. So.
And Mike's right about that, because right now, for example, throughout New York City, there's a gang war. and there's a gang war that's not being mentioned for whatever reason it is. I mean, I know the reason why it's not, but for whatever reason, the media is not talking about it that much. And these shootings that we're hearing in the city, they're 90% of them are gang related. So now the gangs are making moves on one another now, while cops are still in the street, while shit's sort of good. And imagine when that is gone, when the cops are not coming to work because they're like, fuck that, I'm not risking my life. Right. So then the shit gets complicated. Like he says, the power vacuum, these dudes are being here in the streets, probably inside of a couple days, taking over certain things, blocking certain things up, robbing people because they realize, holy shit, this is real. We need food. So there's going to be a lot of that to contend with. So the longer you stay, the more you open yourselves up to that kind of shit when you're trying to leave. Again, if you have a loved one that can't move, then you're staying a long game. You're in it for until that person passes away or until they get better where they can move. Right. Rolling, by the way, rolling down the street with somebody in a wheelchair is a bad fucking idea too. Wheelchairs are not built to go long distance. They're built to go short distance and they're built sturdy for multiple use, if that makes sense. But once you're on a road and now you're going down whatever street and all those little bumps and vibrations all the way down for a few miles, if not a few hundred miles, it's going to snap initially. Eventually it'll snap, it'll break. And then what? Right now you're shit out of luck. So a wheelchair is not a great option. If you have to, if you could put them in a wagon that's built for it. You could put them in a chair that's built for long distance. But people in a wheelchair also slow you down. They make you a huge fucking target. So you also have to keep that in mind when you're pushing somebody down the road. I would absolutely be cautious of that. Right, half hour mark. So the where, again, look at that strategic location book, guys. I think that book is going to give you a better idea of where you might want to move. And I mean, listen, with everything going on, with the food shortages going on, with the pandemic that seems like it's never going to stop, they're always coming up with a new variant to scare people with. They have a new one now here in New York, but it only affects rats. It's the cryptic variant, right? So they found it in rats in the sewer, but not all rats. And the New York City Health Department is actually fighting with the New York State Health Department about this finding of the cryptic variant. But not for nothing. I'm like, listen, if it's affecting rats, why the fuck do we need to know about it? I don't know anybody in the city is fucking eating rats or has a rat as a pet, so why does it matter? But again, that shows you that they want the media to keep scaring us into submission because that's what's coming down to. So this pandemic isn't going to stop. And then we have the ever loving, everybody is now a security threat to the United States, apparently, according to the DHS. We're all security threats. And preppers were mentioned a few months back. Some kind of fucking notice saying that people who gather food are also part of like some militia, some bullshit like that. I was like, Jesus. So even preppers are fucking on target now. This country is in the world of hurt right now, and it's only going to get worse. So with that, moving to different states, you got to be careful which states you move to, right? If you move to a state, first of all, I don't know who in their fucking right mind would want to move to New York State. I know people do it, but you got to be out of your fucking mind to move to this shithole because it's only getting worse. Moving out is the move, and yeah, I would just say pick the state based on what you need. Right now, New York State, sorry, doesn't offer any. They don't want you to have guns, and if they do, sorry, they want you to own firearms, but the type of firearms they want you to own. Meanwhile, the bad guys have all the good shit, right? It's just insane. So, with that, guys, I have not much more to say about it. We got 20 minutes left. Opening the floor to questions. If not, we will end this probably a little earlier, unless I can think of something else. I could think of something else, but we'll talk about that if there's any questions. Why? Go ahead.
Hey, Jason.
What's going on?
So, in Strategic Location, fantastic book. Um, he talks about like a couple of different states recommended. Really, he's recommending out west, but if that's not an option, um, over east, he says like New Hampshire, Tennessee, Kentucky, um, up Michigan, Wisconsin. Any thoughts on any of those places? Arkansas.
Okay, so here's the rub, and I hate this part. I mean, like, he does mention it in the book, but he doesn't go into depth about, like, if you're by yourself, those are good states to move to. New Hampshire, if you want to deal with a lot of snowfall and shit like that in cold winters, that's up to you. Tennessee is not a bad state. I've heard a lot of good shit about it. I would absolutely wouldn't mind moving down to Tennessee. I was in Kentucky. I thought Kentucky was very cool. It was very inviting, at least for me. I got a kick out of it, right? But if you have kids, you have to think of some of these places you might move to might not have the entertainment that the kids need to stay entertained. A lot of these places, a lot of, especially like upstate New York, for example, there's a lot of drug use. There's a lot of fucking drug problems in America. Drug problems in America has exploded. So if you're looking to move on your own, I don't see you getting hooked on drugs. But if you have kids, you have to keep that in mind. Oklahoma, why? No, wait, Oklahoma, Kentucky, I want to say Ohio, they're having a huge drug problem right now. I know a lot of other states are, but they're having what is that called? What's that shit? Crystal meth, right? It's taking hold. Then you got fentanyl now that's moving across the country like a wildfire. So you would have to be absolutely you'd have to be absolutely confident that you can keep your kids away from that kind of shit. Now, if you're moving into the woods on your own in any of these states, then you should be fine, right? You should be okay. But if you're gonna move to a busy town or city, you have to deal with that and you have to think about that.
Jason, about that, the isn't it really more about your neighborhood rather than the state itself? Because even in New York City, there are good neighborhoods and there are bad neighborhoods, and that's just a small geography of one
Sure.
state.
No, you're right. But I've known a lot of kids, for example, not a lot of kids, but a few fireman kids who lived in good towns, upstate New York, and the kids wind up strung out on drugs. One kid actually OD. So it's more in this, and I hate to say it, but in this case, and I say states because a lot of these states have higher probabilities of certain drugs being in that state, right? Like crystal meth, for example, that's not here in the city. I mean, it is, but it's not as popular here in the East Coast as it is out west, right? So you look at certain states, and certain states just have more, sorry, more poorer communities, if that makes sense, and they have more problems. I know that I was talking about Oklahoma, and someone was like, "Do not move to Oklahoma. They have a shit ton of poor neighborhoods, and they have a fucking bad crystal meth problem there." And this was from a cop who lives in Oklahoma, and now he lives in a certain community that he wanted me to move to. He was like, "Well, if you move in with us, you'll be fine. X, Y, and Z." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm not, I'm not opposed to it. I mean, the wife is, but I'm not. But um, you, like I said, you got to look at, and Daniel, you are right. You definitely have to look at the neighborhood you're moving into. But if you have a slow neighborhood or town, and your kids are not in the sports, the likeliness of getting hooked on the drugs is greater. I'm not saying it's definite, but it's greater. And I've watched a lot of these guys and heard too many fucking stories in the firehouse of so many kids getting hooked on drugs. And listen, and even in some cases, some of these kids were athletes. They were athletes. They were out there, um, you know, playing football, baseball, keeping themselves busy, and still found their way to drugs. So I mean, none of this shit's an absolute, but you want to minimize their exposure as much as you possibly can. And that's and that also falls into parenting, you know. But and the other side of that too, that the other side about bad neighborhoods too, is if you're going to bug out or pick a town that neighbors two or three bad towns where the fucking drug use is high and there's nothing but thieves from there, you want to consider that as well. You don't just want to move to fucking, Shindig, Ohio, and then Shindig, Ohio is fucking surrounded by 3 crackvilles, right? And then when the shit is down and the shit is on, where do you think those people are gonna go, right? They're gonna come to your place, or they're gonna come to fucking Shindig town because they're like, oh, those people are squared away. So you also got to keep that in mind. Bad neighbors or cities or towns, you got to look into that, right? You move next door and your neighbor is fucking a mile away, but your fucking neighbor's a crystal meth addict. You might have to entertain this guy trying to break into your shit. Just as the world is now, he might be trying to break into your shit. Never mind the cops not coming out to fucking check on you. Him and his band of fucking crackheads might be coming over to raid your shit. So you have to look into that too before you move anywhere. You know, I know some people move certain places like, oh, this neighborhood's great. This is not bad. And then they got a shitty neighbor. And that's the neighbor you want to fucking choke the fuck out, right? So you got to look into that as well. You got to look at that as well. Sorry, not into it. But when you visit these neighborhood guys, you got to visit them at 3 separate times. You got to visit them in the morning, afternoon, and especially at night. And if you can afford to, the weekends at night, because you want to know who that asshole is that's playing his music too loud. You want to know what your neighbor is doing Friday night, 10 o'clock, Friday, 10 o'clock at night. Even though they might be half a mile away, you still want to know what they're doing, what they're up to, right? And you want to know what the area looks like at that time of night, or day rather, sorry. But these are things that you have to consider, and it's a lot to consider. But the book, the strategic locations book, you write down a list of what you want, and that's what you go by. And if those states meet your criteria, that's where you move. It's pretty simple on that. And in the neighborhoods, that's entirely up to you. After that, that gets entirely into your business, whether you want to live in a populated town where it's fucking 10,000 people, or you want to live in a town where there's like 200 people. It's entirely up to you. All right, guys, any other questions? If the word is no, Mike, you want to say anything?
Nope, all good, brother.
Jason, so I was just curious, and you also, Paul. I'm not from New York. I'm living here in Westchester County right now, and I'd like to get some firearms education. Like if I was in Virginia, I know groups there where I could get NRA training and stuff like that. But what is there around here?
Mike, that would be
There's a place called the Paladin Center in Carmel, New York. And they have Hudson Valley Shooting Sports located there.
How far?
And
Paladin. I can look it up.
yeah, Paladin Center in Carmel. That's a great place. All the training you could want. They host classes there, events, scenario training, all kinds of stuff. And they even do airsoft down there for the kids on the weekends.
So if you don't have any firearms yet, living too close to the city, and in the state, I bought one. Should I have my own firearm before I go to a place like that, or can I shoot with
So I'm not sure if they do rentals there. There is a place in Kingston, New York, that's not too far from me, that does rentals on rifles and pistols and things like that. Pistols are tricky in New York State because of the whole background thing, but you may be able to go to the range upstate here and do some shotgun or rifle training indoors. But handguns are very tricky in New York State. So
yeah. So what would be I mean, obviously there's about four classes of weapons. There's like a shotgun. There's like a long gun. There's like a pistol, and I forget what the fourth is. But obviously.
Carbine.
Pardon?
Carbine rifle.
Okay. So that would be like a hunting rifle?
More of a tactical style rifle is a carbine, something that automatically reloads the next round, semi-automatic.
Semi-automatic. Okay. All right. Okay. So 3 of those are legal?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. That's enough now. I may be out of the state before it matters.
Yeah, well, you can still purchase all of those rifles here in upstate New York anyway. They're kind of neutered down with the magazine size and some of the features you have to remove from them. But you can still purchase them, you can still shoot them, you can still own them. It's all about what you're willing to do to it after the fact. Once it leaves there legal, a lot of people go home and they take all of that garbage off and try and turn it back into what it was once upon a time. That is absolutely illegal, and I would never recommend that to anybody, but it happens. So they are neutered down in New York, but it happens, people.
And then as far as keeping guns during storage, would you have like a gun locker in your car, or how would you do that? I mean,
Absolutely. I would everything under lock and key at all times. And if you can biometric it, even better. That means nobody's getting into it but you.
yeah. And so where do you find that stuff? Like a Cabela's or a Tractor Supply?
Absolutely. Yep.
Those kind
And
of places?
well, any place that sells firearms is going to sell gun locks to go along with them. I believe all firearms sold come with a gun lock nowadays, so that you can lock that firearm up and render it inoperable unless you have a key.
Okay. Is there going to be a recording of this, or do I just have to remember what's going on now?
We are recording. I'm going to put this on the YouTube channel later tonight.
Okay, thank you.
And
Comment. Yeah, I'm not sure how to put the little hand up.
go ahead.
Can't figure that out. If you go to Elmsford, New York, there's Blue Line Shooting Sports. I've dealt with them once or twice, but they have an on-site range. They do training. They sell guns. They can set you up. And I know for a fact, if you're serious about buying a weapon, you can pre-shoot it there, and they can.
Yeah, that's perfect. They're pretty close by.
Okay.
And the other thing is really what I'm interested in now is just training. I don't necessarily want to own a firearm unless I know what I'm doing first.
Yeah, definitely. They'll at least lead you in the right direction there.
So what's it called?
Blue Line.
Okay.
Line. Yep. They do a lot of deal with a lot of police departments as well, but they have a regular regular civilian store there.
All right. Thank you. What's your name?
Gene, Gene.
Okay. Thanks, Gene.
No problem.
And this is exactly why I wouldn't own a firearm in this shit ass state, because of all these rules and regulations. It's almost embarrassing, the amount of rules, regulations, and laws. And the worst part is, it's even worse that a lot of the gun owners went along with it. Like that's the worst part about the whole thing. I'm really disgusted. So I would never purchase a firearm or a permit or anything like that here. Like I said, I'm hopefully in a couple months I'll be in Texas. I'll have all the fuck. I already told the wife. I said, we moved to Texas. The first thing we buy, she's like, what, a new TV set or couch? I'm like, no, fuck that. We're getting guns. It's the first thing we buy. And that's going to be like the gift to myself, not even for the family, but to myself. Because, it's bad. Now, tactical training shooting, if anyone's looking for more high speed, and you might not be looking at that for that, Bob, but for those who are looking for more high speed shit, you got to go out of state. You got to go out of New York State for it. I did Blackwater back in the days. That shit was phenomenal. And I know 6 Hour runs one. I think Triple Canopy, if they're still around, I think they had a shooting course, and they all have you go through the motions of cycling through your weapons to, dropping a mag, getting one round in, and just making that one round count, sort of like the one match challenge. They have like a 1 round challenge. So these are, and then you have something called clown balls, where you sit at the target and the instructor will yell out 10, and you have to hit the fucking ball that's marked 10 or 5 or 1. And that is those are pretty cool, but you don't have that here in the state because they don't allow for rapid shooting and all those other fucking crazy bullshit rules that they have. But tactical shooting is, and Bob, that's a good way to go about it. Fucking getting your training first before you get your firearm. Too many people go for the firearm first and then like almost shoot their fucking foot off, and then they go for the training, so that's definitely a good way of going about it.
Good.
So when you told the wife that the first thing you do in Texas is buy firearms, what did she say?
She wasn't happy. She gave me a blank. Well, it was one, the wife stare when you fucking piss them off. They give you this look, like, So that's pretty much what it was. She's like, it was like, that's not funny, but little does she know I'm like dead ass serious, But
Good for
I-
you.
I'm not gonna buy all of them, but I'm absolutely going to piss her off when I buy them. And I'm not trying to do it, but she's not gonna be happy. Just let's put it like that. But again, that's down the line. We're hearing Spring, go ahead.
Hey guys, good night. While we're talking about getting out and stuff like that, have you ever mentioned like geo what do you call it when you like bury stuff in the ground in certain areas and geocaching?
Yes.
I don't know. You all mentioned stuff like that already?
No,
I came in late, so
no, we didn't talk about stuff like that. And thank you for bringing it up. That's actually a good thing to talk about, because I am on the fence with that geocache. And the only reason why I'm on the fence is that you have to be walking a specific path to run into your geocache, right?
right.
So if you are, for example, I'm using this as an example. I don't know why anybody would, but this is an example. I'm walking to Florida, and I'm walking to Florida from here, and I'm taking 95 straight down, right? If I buried shit, and when you bury shit, you should bury it is 3 to 5 days apart from each other, right? Walking distance, that is, assuming that you're going to run low on certain foods and you might need batteries and all this other bullshit. You have to walk that specific path all the way to Florida. And if you deviate, a deviation could put you 20 miles away from your next cache. That means you have to either backtrack or walk. Yeah, you have to backtrack to 20 miles to get to that cache again if you need it. So a cache is very, very a lot of people talk about it, but it's not conducive, because
Right.
if, like I said, if I walk to Mike's place, there's on foot, there's probably 6, 7 ways I can get to his house. I'm not going to bury 60 different caches between my place and his, right? So I would have to all but walk on, let's say, option one and stick to option one. And if something deviates me from option one, then I know that I'm fucked for the next 20, 30 miles to get to his place. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's something that it could be done, but the more I start researching, rather, bugging out, I start looking into it. I'm like, that might not make a lot of sense. And thank you for bringing it up, because I'm gonna do a video on it now that you brought it up, because it's fucking that's a good point. That was a good question to bring up. Sorry. And again, I look at it and I'm like, I bury a cache in, like, let's say again, Mike's estate. I bury one in his backyard. If I'm going to his house and I know I have to get to his house regardless, that's where I would bury it, right? If I know I have to get to a certain spot, I would bury it there. But I wouldn't bury shit along the way, because again, deviation, man, that'll fuck your whole day up. Now you don't pack, and that's a problem with geocaches. Like, some people will pack 3 days worth of shit. Well, if you get deviated, now you're fucking 5, 6 days away from the shit that that you wanted to that you needed to get. Not that you wanted to get, you needed to get. Now you got to backtrack all that way. So it's something to think about. You should definitely have a plan, but it should be at a certain location and not along the way. Daniel, go ahead.
Now, there's a phenomena that is taking place already that we can sort of use as an analog for bugging out. It's the illegal convoys, the illegals coming up from Mexico and further places south of Mexico. They travel in big groups. Now, regardless of who's organizing them, that's traditionally been the safest way to travel in dangerous territory. The Crusades, same thing. They travel in big groups where there's we'll call it the military surrounding them that's offering the protection, and they're the quick reaction force. Then it's the people who are making the rank and file are in this group, and they travel on foot. This is why it's been done forever. this is something I had not considered, but it's how people will travel. Now, when you're in a big group, there's like the common wagon that's towing everybody's stuff, and there's some semblance of control, some authority that's leading the convoy. Have you ever thought about that, or how that would work for bugging out? And that's a solution for people that need to get out of the city, as they go on the convoy, hopefully going in a similar direction to where they want to end up in.
Almost more like a migration, almost
Yeah,
like a herd mentality.
right. And that's
It,
and that's
it's not,
the
it's not, yeah, go ahead.
Exodus, exactly.
Yeah,
well
it's not.
the problem with that, Daniel, is that the convoy right now is there's no need to attack it. They're not offering anything. No one's desperate for anything. No one's going to them and like, yo, give me your food.
But they're still
When
in the con.
yeah, but it does, yeah, they're in a convoy, but a convoy during the shit hits the fan scenario is going to get attacked.
Yeah, well, that's why it's a quick reaction force. They charge you a fee to be in this convoy that's going from point A to point B already defined.
Right.
You're welcome to join. It's going to cost you $50, and we're going to give you a wagon to put your backpack on, and we provide the security. And they make $50 a head, and you got 1,000 people going. You can get into some money.
Okay, I see what you're saying as far as like a business opportunity and it working. I mean, yes, they did that for the cattle drive, right? Not the cattle drive, sorry. The Oregon Trail, right?
Yeah.
Going out there, right? They had the same thing, they had protection. But in the Oregon Trail, some of those convoys didn't make it to their destination because
There's
they
the Yellowstone prequel, 1880 something or another.
1883.
Yes, that's exactly the model I'm talking about, because this is going to happen. People are not going to have cars. There's not going to be no gasoline, or very restricted supplies of gasoline. And if people want to get from point A to point B, yeah, they can join the convoy, tag along, and the quid pro quo. Hey, it's like you pay your $50 or two silver coins or whatever the fee is, and they will let you walk along with them, and provide you with some semblance of security from marauders, from gangsters, from checkpoints, from all the things that you can come into when you're traveling that you can't surmount if you're by yourself.
All right, so you're watching 1883, right?
No, I've just seen the previews of it, but I know
Okay.
I know the story of how the American West was conquered.
Developed. Right.
Right.
Okay, so I'm gonna give a bit of a spoiler alert away. There's a character in the show who did not want anything to do with the convoy because he'll explain why. So you got to watch the show to see why he explained why. And that's my same exact thinking. I don't want to be with a group of people that I have to babysit. Now, yes, with a convoy, I get it. You're protecting people to get from point A to point B. And yes, you're right. That will probably most likely work. But again, a lot of convoys going out west were completely demolished and being attacked. Now, some guys in the convoys, like one of the characters, he has made friends through the way. So he was able to get through certain situations, in a shit hits the fan scenario, if you're not making those kind of connections, it don't matter how fucking strong your convoy is, you're gonna have a bigger dog out there that's gonna come after you. And the other problem we have now is that we have more people all over America, as opposed to in 1883, where there was minimal people when they were going out west. We are overcrowded all over this country. So it doesn't matter what direction you go in, you're going to get attacked. Right. And we have way more guns now than we did back then.
Oh, yeah.
So now you have an opposing group that's going to go in on that convoy to get what they need. Now, listen, I'm not saying what you're saying is not wrong. That makes perfect sense. I think people could pull it off, but it's probably going to be more work than it's worth. And I myself wouldn't want to be a part of a convoy like that. If I'm looking to move from, let's say, here to Texas, me and the family, we're going to do it on our own. We might do it with another group of people we know, but we're not going to have this gigantic convoy that says, hey, look at us, rob us, please. Again, I see the allure with it. And in 1883, it's actually interesting how some of them come together, but they also address how some of them were fucking destroyed. So, and then you also have the, this is a classic one, the Donner Party, right? You have convoys that got fucking lost, because they didn't know where the fuck they were going or what they were doing. And he had that to contend with. And that's part of babysitting, you know, and you don't want to deal with that shit. The name of the name of the show is 1883.
Right.
If you're not watching 1883, you're not American. Just kidding. But
Yes, Joe. Anything you say, Joe Biden.
yeah, it's an awesome show, man. I like that. And Yellowstone. Yellowstone will grow some hair on your chest watching that show. That's a really good show. But 1883, you get a sense of the convoy, the shitty living that these people had to do on their way to wherever they were going, which was Oregon. Certain people stop off along the way and stop off wherever they are, but it still lends to the lifestyle that these people led back then. I don't know if any of us could deal with that shit for that long period of time, because they were talking about like months on this fucking road. But again, you guys have to watch the show. You'll definitely get a kick out of it. Actually, it's on. I think it's on tonight. But yeah, you guys should definitely take a look at it. But yeah, the convoy thing's not a bad idea. If, listen, you're looking to make money, and you're like, listen, man, I could promise you I'll get you from here to here. Yeah, you know, I can see that happening. But we just have way more people now than we did back then in 1883.
Be an armored vehicle, Jason. We can run people in and out of the city.
Yeah.
We could do that. Yeah, as long
We
as
can make a fortune.
as long as I get my hands on one. I mean, yeah, and you're all right. You have armored vehicles, but you know what else we have now? We have motherfuckers that make bombs, right? So that's the thing. Like back then, I mean, people had dynamite, but they weren't doing roadside shit back then with dynamite. It's not for fucking stagecoaches. They were running them down, shooting them, and then fucking taking their shit. You know, with us now, it'd be a different ball game. You know, I don't know.
Pull out MRAP.
Yes, that's probably the only thing that would work. So, Michael Mincy was asking, is there a place to see what is allowed in New York? He's talking about gun laws.
What I would start with a Google search and firearm legalities in New York. What's allowed, what's not. You know, there's controversy over the 7 or 10 round limits. I get around that because I use 5-shot revolvers, so it doesn't bother me so much. That's my carry gun. I carry a revolver, so there's never any controversy. It's always under the limit. You know, revolvers and shotguns are pretty much safe across the board. Obviously, you need a pistol permit for any kind of handgun. And the definition of a handgun is something that is ever evolving with the ATF. So something that's considered a handgun today may get you in legal trouble tomorrow, from what I've been seeing in the firearms community. So be careful what you do. Some of these pistol braces are no longer qualifying as pistol braces. And now all of a sudden you have a short barreled rifle and you're in big trouble. So it's best not to tiptoe that line and just stay in the black and white. A long gun on Long Island for home protection. Yeah, I would say a shotgun, you know, 12 gauge, 20 gauge shotgun is, I hate to be the Joe Biden of the group, but shotgun is where it's at. It doesn't matter what language you speak, when you rack a 12 gauge, everybody understands.
That is true. Now, me personally, I take a different stance. I'm Mr. Fuck it. If you get your hands on some firearm, legal or not, get it. Don't register it. That's what I tell everyone. Do not register these firearms. And then you won't get caught, you won't have a problem. And guess what? If somebody tries to fucking kill you or your family or do some weird shit, you protect yourselves. At least your family gets to live another day. You might go to jail, but I would say jail is way worth it than hiding behind a fucking book and waiting for the cops to come, you know? So that's my stance. And I tell people that all the time. I'm like, fuck it. Do what needs to be done to protect yourself. Don't wait for the laws to protect you, because they won't. Right. And as we've seen, they're going to be going in hard on the guns in the next year or two, especially if Kamala Harris takes over. Kamala Harris takes over, we're fucked. We're fucked that ways to Sunday. And I think Joe Biden will be stepping down by the end of this year. So we'll definitely see some pandemonium shit break down as far as the political arena goes. But that's that. That's that side, and we have to wait to see if that happens.
Hey,
What about-
Jason, I just want to be sure, that's your opinion, that's not your advice, right?
On
Because
what?
on not registering a firearm, because I don't know if we want to say that on a YouTube channel.
I don't give a fuck, man. What are they gonna do? Cancel me? But yeah, it's my opinion. It's my opinion. But yeah, I normally don't give a shit. Listen, guys, the amount of shit that we're fucking seeing right now, everything's gonna get us in trouble, right? I mean, if you don't, if you don't get the arm ticket, you're gonna lose your job. If you have a rifle from fucking 1973 and it doesn't meet the legal standards of New York's what's called today, you can get arrested. If you don't put a mask on your face, you can get kicked out of a store and arrested. If you don't, if you love Trump, you're an asshole and a racist. If you love Biden, you're a fucking communist and and a dick face. So it's like everything is going to get us in trouble, right? So I say fuck it all, and just do what needs to be done to prolong yourself and your family, and that's prepping, right? That's what it all comes down to.
Yeah, you're saying common sense.
Yes, thank you.
But Bob, it's also rare places nationwide that require registration of firearms. Only very few locales require this anti-constitutional activity. You're not required to register. The Constitution is really clear. The right to bear arms shall not be infringed. That word not be infringed. Forget about passing any laws requiring registration. You can't even get close to passing laws that would burden the gun owner.
Thank you.
Gene, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to make a quick comment about firearms in New York. I could sit there and speak for 2-3 hours about guns and communications, but I was born and raised in New York, and I moved out of there about 9 months ago. New York is a very special situation. If you're not used to the gun community out there, you have to learn what's legal on a federal level is most likely not legal in New York. New York has its own complete set of laws pertaining to handguns, pertaining to long guns, modern sporting rifles such as AR-15s and whatnot. So it's really like, if you don't know, and you can always check the New York Safe Act website. If you just Google New York Safe Act, there's a lot of rules on it, what constitutes an assault rifle and whatnot, because there's what we just consider a regular gun. It could be considered an assault rifle to New York law. So it's important to check that stuff out. I mean, it's just too much to discuss in one Zoom meeting here. But so definitely, you really got to investigate and talk to somebody who knows about it. Somebody who really knows about the rules. I just want to get back to Hudson Valley prepping. It's been proven already. 10 rounds is the limit in New York. There's no, I don't want to say for New York City. Like I said, I'm not too, so, and that's just another thing I want to specify. So you have federal level, you have New York, the state of New York, and then you have New York City, which is just, I don't even know where to go with that one, because I moved out of New York City about 10 years ago. So, I mean, I'm kind of like on Jason's line of thinking about guns, but it was getting to a point that I was, all right, I either got to get out of the state or I got to start getting rid of some stuff, because there's, you don't want to walk that line. But so, just a real example here. We were talking while I got it out. This is a AR-9. It's high capacity magazines. It's completely legal here in Nevada. This is a pistol. It's not SBR, but you could walk into the store into the gun store here in Nevada and walk right out with it. The only thing is, in Nevada, you do need a concealed carry permit. It's considered a shall issue state, so they can't deny you unless you have past felonies, but it does take about a 4-month investigation background check. A 4-month background check, they'll give you a concealed carry for a pistol. It's like I said, a shall issue. They have to give it to you. But I'm obviously, even though that's an AR pistol, you're not going to conceal it. You're not going to stick that down your pants. But the important thing I'm trying to get to is in New York, you really got to kind of talk to people who know the rules and the laws of what you can and can't have. Typically, if you go into a store to buy it, they're not going to sell it to you if they know you can't have it. But if you want to buy something from someone, then that's where you got to kind of be careful. So just wanted to throw that out there.
That thing would put me in prison for 30 years, Gene.
Yeah, totally.
It's funny.
Totally.
We went to a gun show. A bunch of guys from Long Island. I drove in with them. We drove to a gun show in Pennsylvania, and we're looking at all these guns, and I'm like, oh my god, like it was like a man's dream. It was like, holy shit, right? It's like being in the candy shop. So anyway, they're walking around, and I spoke to two different guys. I'm like, yeah, I'm from New York. As soon as I said, yeah, I'm from New York, they did an about face. One guy just stopped talking to me, and I was like, damn, just like that. He's like, we can't say these. I'm like, I know you can't sell it. I'm just asking you questions about it. He's like, oh, okay. I thought you were looking to buy. I'm like, I said, thank you for assuming. I said, I know I can't buy this shit, but he's like, yo, New York is bad. He goes, we don't even bother trying to figure out what the laws are. He says a lot of their companies, they just make a blanket. We're not sending them. And even if they are legal, they don't want to deal with any ramifications that might pop up when they send it. And he said it happened to them once. And he said it was one time. And they said never again. So they had to
Even
get the guy back.
Even with ammo now, there's a lot of companies that, there was a provision in the SAFE Act that they wanted you to do a background check to buy ammunition in New York.
Right.
And they tried to implement it, but they were hoping to use the NICS system. And the federal government told New York State basically to pound salt, you can't use the system. So they were never able to implement it. So they kind of struck it down. It was written in, but a lot of companies still will not ship ammo to New York State, even though it's still legal because they could never implement the laws.
This is what we get for living in the great state of New York. So
New Yorkistan.
New Yorkistan. I mean, that's just the thing. So bugging out might be your better option. Fuck it, just do it now. Everybody should just close the computers and leave. This fucking state sucks, man. But hopefully, guys, that this Zoom meeting got across to some of you guys. So I know I mentioned it earlier. I'm going to mention it again. We are going to start doing more outdoor training. There is a walkabout coming around soon. We're going to wait till the weather gets nice. We're going to look at certain buildings in case there was a tsunami here in New York City. In case there's a tsunami in New York City, we're going to look at buildings that we could run into if we were downtown. That's going to put us above that water line, right? And I'm gonna tell you right now, if you're stuck in the city and there's a tsunami coming and you can't get out, you better become like the Terminator, because stairs are gonna kick your ass before you get, and you have to get above, I wanna say 5 or 8 stories to be safe, and then you gotta move up from there. But there are certain buildings that you can't go into because either security's not gonna allow you, or that building might not be structurally sound once water hits it with debris and shit coming behind it. You also have to look at that way as well. So we're definitely going to do a walkabout, and that's just so that we're not fucking sitting here on a computer screen looking at each other. We're actually out there, looking at one another in person. Sorry, Gene, go ahead.
No, I just want to say, I think that's a great thing, because one thing I've learned, especially after moving out here, and speaking to, there's a big prepping community out here in Nevada, the whole desert scene and all that. But what I did learn is somebody said something very interesting to me. They said, forget about the whole prepping thing, forget about the whole bugging out thing, start small. And they said, ask yourself a very simple question and very conservative question. You have 12 hours to leave. You have to leave your home in 12 hours, or else you're going to die. Where are you going to go? What are you going to do? And it's that simple. You have to just figure out where are you going to go long term. We're not talking about you're going to get a hotel room, but and there was a distance. I think somebody said you got to get out. You got to move 5 miles away. You have 12 hours to get 5 miles out away. What are you going to do? And a lot of people don't have answers for that. They don't know what to do, where they would go. And it's just something to think about. I thought it was a very good point, but that's a great thing. Doing those walkabouts are a great thing, because not only physically it lets you know where you're at, but it just gives you that feel of, holy crap, if I got to walk, I don't have a ride. What the hell do I got to do to get out of here?
That's a very good point. Yeah, listen, when they were talking about that volcano, La Palma falling off and all this other bullshit, people like, oh, you only have, I'm like, yo, easy. I said, from here to like by car, I can get anywhere in 2 hours and be above the fucking waterline and shit like that. But assuming that we're stuck in 12 hours, we could do some damage. Just walking alone, we could do some damage. So, but you have to be physically capable to do that walk in that amount of time. I mean, hell, I can get in 2 hours. In 2 hours, I could be 6 miles, 6, 7 miles from here, right? And so another 2 hours, I'm in the safe zone, if you will. But is a CB rated comedian? Like, okay, so Sprang and Michael are looking to do a communications event this year. The only person I know right now, or the only two people I know, Daniel and Random here, or Gene, sorry, that know their shit about communication. So if they want to put something together like Gene has done it before, yes, it would be up to them to want to do it, and then we'll host it on here. That's right. I'm volunteering, you guys.
Yeah, sure, definitely. I'll email you.
All right,
I'll let
cool.
you know if something, we'll get some time together and, we'll definitely do something up again.
All right, cool. All right, see, guys, you heard it. So in probably a couple months, or rather a few weeks, sorry. I don't want to say a couple months anymore. A few weeks, we'll get that done. So in the next couple of weeks, we're going to be doing a lot more with this group than we did before. And that should be it. I am tired. I want to get the fuck off this thing. Guys, thank you for turning out. Thank you for showing up. And some of you showing up twice. Mike, Daniel, Heather, I appreciate you guys being here again.
Fine, brother.
And then other than that, guys, I will see you guys probably in 2 weeks. What is this, February? Yeah, probably in 2 weeks in March, or 3 weeks in March. I'll see you guys again.
And thank you very much for the link.
No problem. Thank you.
Take care, everybody.
Later.
Have a great day, guys.
Good night, guys.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.